once set, what we do with technology, how we show up with technology will then be useful.
Old tech is still also good tech sometimes. Post-it note is a technology.
Having that technological advantage, it's because the customer is driving. Actually, that's a good reason.
I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. At the Bold Business Podcast, we are normalizing important conversations. Yes, there are tips. Yes, there are ways to solve problems. More importantly, are going to be, what do you need for yourself to be able to solve those problems and make the most of the education, the training, and the programs that you are already using. This is a supplement to that. It can sit on top of it, fuel your soul, fuel your mind, and most importantly, regardless of where you're at on your journey, maybe you're starting out, maybe you're ready to scale, maybe you're going through a reinvention. The conversations we are having will help you at each of those stages. So hang around, see what's going on, and I look forward to seeing you engaging with our videos.
Wow.
Welcome to It's Your Business, brought to you by the Bold Business Podcast. This is your source for navigating today's ever-evolving business landscape. In this program, Jess, Christy, and Dean share the realities of current business challenges and triumphs. Get ready to lead with depth, understanding, and achievement.
Welcome to the Bold Business Podcast's production of It's Your Business. I am here live with two of my favorite peers, and we're going to be talking today about emerging technologies in business. This is a buzzword. This is a thing. And you want to know, after our conversations in terms of preparing this, I actually sat down and I was like, well, what is emerging technology and how does it show up? And guess what? It shows up in every decade. And now we're getting to a place where it's more than one new thing will show up in a decade, but every single time, whether it was getting on the internet at all, doing online banking, maybe becoming a technology company and using digital marketing in addition to print marketing. Maybe it's AI, maybe it's operational, maybe it's virtual help, whatever that is, we still have key things to focus on in our business. Are we relevant? And to know if we're relevant, we have to know our competition. To know if we're relevant, we have to know what our customers want and where they're at and how they want to be interacted with. And technology helps us with all of those things. So when we're talking about emerging technologies here, that's it. How do we use it? And Dean will say this way better than me, but then you gotta use it. And here we go. So what I will say now is I'm excited to be here. Let's venture, let's be bold, and we're going to take a second or a minute to introduce each of ourselves. Christy, how about if you start?
Christy Maxfield with Purpose First Advisors. I love people who think I'm funny. That's the first thing you should know about me. The second is that I run Purpose First Advisors. We are a growth strategy organization that looks at growth through the lens of succession and exit planning for business owners.
Dean.
Dean Barta at Barta Business Group. We focus on controller and CFO level work for basically growing small businesses that really, need to they're growing fast, where the biggest question you ask the business owner is, what else?
And I'm Jess Dewell, and at Red Direction, we are providing growth advising services. And here's this thing. One of the things that I love to talk about is what you're doing right now. What's working? What's your biggest goal? How come you haven't gotten there yet in your eyes? And we can find those limiting beliefs because they're hiding in plain sight in our mindset, in our culture, in our processes. And that's what we're doing over at Red Direction because we just want to stir a pot now and again. Just like my peers, but they probably would say it a little differently here. So today we're talking about competitive advantage with emerging technologies. And of course, our main theme in general is how do we stay relevant? Because we want to stay in business. And I know we really spending some time on knowing our competition is incredibly important. So when I think about this and I think about what that means to me, I know, but I'm curious to hear, Dean and Christy, what do you think about when you think about knowing your competition?
I think about it because exit and succession planning are really part of my jam. I think about it in terms of the fact that for many folks, if an exit is part of their strategy and they're not going to do it internally, the next most likely buyer is one of their competitors. So, who do I need to be in relationship with, not only to know what's going on and how to position my business for growth right now, but also what are the things that potentially make me more appealing for an exit or make my competitors appealing to me for an acquisition. So that's going to vary from industry to industry. But when we were prepping, Dean made the point of like, y- in fact, you can get over obsessed with your competition. You can try to keep up with the Joneses. And I don't want to keep up with the Joneses as much as I want to differentiate myself. So either the Joneses want to buy me, and if the Joneses are differentiating themselves, I want to buy them. But both of us are trying to do something that's special and important to solve our clients' problems. And it could have impact not only on our current growth and income, but on our future positioning for exit, acquisition, or some other type of joint venture, things like that.
Each one of us is unique, and each one of our businesses, there's not a carbon copy of even two businesses in the same industry. And so just like as individuals, right, we each one of us brings our own personality and passion and love to the table, and be aware of, what your competition is doing. But it's not about copying. It's about, hey, what if we do it our way and do it special that resonates with our values and how we want to move forward with our particular company. And to me, that's what really will resonate with people, because then, they will connect with you. And that's one of the best clients to have, is when you're connecting with them and they're connecting with you, and based on your values.
And it's easy with technology because as technology becomes more accessible and we embrace it, the barrier to entry decreases, which means what Dean was saying about uniqueness in our way becomes more important, which makes what Christy was saying with, well, who am I talking to? Who am I complimentary to? Because that changes my future. Those increase. And we've been taught, and I'm gonna say we in general, this is my opinion. We have been taught to focus on the process and not on the ambiguity. To focus on the process and embrace uniqueness, but what does that actually look like when we're working toward growth and staying in business and figuring out those problems of, how do I make payroll? Is my talent the same? I have to do more with less here. What does that look like with the time, energy, and money that we have? And those are common questions that we've got in that basis. And I will tell you then, because I'm thinking about this, and so really being able to add to know your competition. I have personal experience of being in charge of 5 companies doing the exact same thing. Profit margins from 8% to like 28%. And on paper, you look at all the features of the things and they were all the same. And so, how do you sell something at 8% and sell that same thing at 28%? Well, I figured that out because we did it and we grew, and I was in charge of everybody. And it did come down to who, and it was all in software. So, it was what kind of company was attracted to this and what features did they lean into? And so, we led the marketing, we led the conversation, we led the decision making calls and the calls of the solutions with what those clients had decided that company was already giving them. And that's how we grew, because we could help them with where their priorities were too. And so on paper, it looks all the same. But how we did it, what we did, and why the use was happening was what made us different. And I thought that that was an interesting way to kind of think about, we need to know how we're different. Yeah. Yeah, we have to know how we're different. And what does that mean and where does that conversation go? What are some of the things that you hear about emerging technologies and either the excitement about it or the fear about it? Now I'm curious, right?
It's not even fear. I'd put it as like frustration of, oh, there's another thing that has now become table stakes that I have to invest in, right? So like in the restaurant world, the point of sale system, the POS system, didn't have to do all the things it has to do today 10 years ago. But now my customers expect to be able to order online. Expect to be able to pay digitally. Without even having a physical card with them, right? They want to do this transaction. I want to have my receipt in my inbox. I want it to be tied to the app that tracks all of my loyalty points, right? And so if I've got a good business going, but now just the norm of what my customers expect is I have to invest in new technology to deliver the things that have now become the new norm. I think there's a level of fatigue around that sometimes, depending on the industry, of just like, oh, it's one more thing. And now, how does this talk to QuickBooks? Because Dean's going to want all this data in there, and he's not going to want me to send him a spreadsheet anymore because that's not how we do it anymore. And how's that going to get into the CRM? And nobody was want to upload, download, upload, and do all that. Those guys just got to talk to each other too. And my thing doesn't talk to anybody about anything because it's like 10 years old, and I don't even know if anybody supports it anymore. Like it can get that's where you kind of get into overwhelm and then fear, and then people just kind of shut down and try to delegate it because they don't wanna think about it.
Does your POS system need to have it? Is it your clients that are driving that? Now that's an important thing to look at is having that technological advantage. It's because the customer is driving. Actually, that's a good reason for you to upgrade. If you're just like, well, everybody else that has this CRM or whatever, then I should have it too. That's a different reason. That it may not be, that the need is there. And so, taking a look at that because yeah, all of us get overwhelmed about, oh, there's just one more thing, else you have to do. But you could look at it as, wow, if I'm going to drive more customers to me, if I got that POS system and I could, take out and make people can order online and all this, you know, let's just say that that's the salve that helps that change, move along a little bit quicker, because you're like, oh, because you're already seeing the benefit of it instead of it being a burden.
Jess, because you asked about excitement, I don't think either of us I mean, you get excited when you think about making more money. I'll give Dean that. That is absolutely 100% true. But on the flip side, you could get excited about the new technology and it's a distraction. And it's either the everybody else has it, I want it too, or well, you know, if I do that, I'll feel productive. I'll feel like I'm making progress with the business, and it's a heck of a lot more fun than updating my current CRM or reconciling my bank statements or making sure that my social posts are scheduled, all of which require technology. But man, if I can try out like the 18 different versions of AI prompted writing resources that are available as of like 20 minutes ago, I I think about how much fun we would have.
Having worked with companies both inside and outside, so this is whether I was part of these companies or on the outside looking in, I will tell you that there are interests around technology that are just part of the culture. And the sooner those are named, the sooner progress is made. So there were several companies that I've worked with. Status quo, mainstream, no. If it even could be considered emerging technology, we are out. By the way, those are typically, in my experience, the number 2 to number 5 companies in a market. So whether that's geographic, wherever that geography is, nationally, internationally, within your community, those people are, I mean, they're big, they're staying presence, and they're like, cool, you guys figure it out. Then we'll just work with once you figure it out. And I think that's an interesting approach because if you can name it and say, I don't want to do emerging technology, it allows you to focus on other things and your brain space doesn't even have to go there. The other thing I would say is on the flip side, I do like emerging technology. And I know personally, like Christy was saying, it could be a distraction. And like Dean was saying, I'm like, well, now I just want to know what else is everybody else already using this? Whether I choose or not is a whole different story. But both of those things like come to mind for me. And then another piece that I would add would be, well, what are my goals actually? And we have to come back to that. Are my goals to increase profitability? Are my goals to reach new markets? Are my goals to do new research and development? Is my goal to acquire a company? Whatever those organizational goals are, will actually, once set, what we do with technology, how we show up with technology will then be useful. I need this brand new one, or I need to figure this out now, or this can wait until it settles a little. And I think that that's something that we really have to hold first as well. Emerging technologies only work if we know what our goals are. And that's not
Oh,
now. These are your looking forward 5+ years goals.
yes,
Yeah.
100%.
How do you, well, I got cool. And
I like your approach, Jess, because you're looking at it, think about it strategically, because you may not need to do 5 different systems or whatever here in business. It might be, okay, well, we do this and this is going to improve this. And then you say, hey, well, we can wait because that's the next system. We're not inefficient, but we know that that's something that we're going to have to do in the future. And being really strategic because, gosh, we've all went through enough system conversions or transitions and all that. You only want a certain number of those in your lifetime.
I think the number of conversions to the life expectancy is directly correlated.
Yeah. That's like skiing moguls. You only have a number of bumps in your knees, and that's it. But being strategic about that, that's a really smart way to look at it and find out what's going to be your best return on investment for, that particular technology, and have a strong, like, okay, we've got 3 main reasons why we're going to move to this, we're going to bring this technology in that's really going to benefit and, ease whatever pain we have in that particular area.
Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I thrive on your feedback and engagement. You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Dewell. This is your program for strategizing long-term success while diving deep into what the right work is for your business right now.
You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, hosted by Jess Dewell, a nationally recognized strategic growth consultant. She works with business owners and executives to integrate just 2 elements that guide business through the ups and downs of growth. Number 1, know what work is necessary. Number 2, do all the work possible. Schedule a complimentary consultation to find out more at reddirection.com.
I can tell you the conversations that I have been having for the last 6 to 9 months have been revolving around, I'm not sure what to do with my increased labor costs, and I'm expecting them to go up. I recognize that my profitability is probably going to be going down because my costs are going to go up more than I can increase my revenue. How do I navigate some of these things? And this is where AI, automation, however you want, whatever piece of AI you want, sales systems, big data, even though, big data for everyday companies, all of those things come down to what you were saying, Dean, and adding on was to where are we strategically? Because I don't think a company really can't do all of them in a year. They can do one at a time. And how does that then set the stage for what's next?
Find the task or the function in your business that people really don't like doing. And that's probably the first place to look. Let's call it data entry, which, you know, data entry is like giving someone a washboard and a bar of soap, to do laundry. I mean, that should never be done in 2025. So, but find out that's a good way to look and say, oh man, it's a repetitive function. Or it's just something that's like, this is just arduous to do. Can we find a piece of technology that will really bring the burden off of that? That's one way to look at it. And the others, what like Christy mentioned, it's like, hey, it gives you a competitive advantage to kind of help, prioritize what's gonna, what the direction would be best.
I love the idea, Dean, of looking at like where's that repetitive task that is the people don't like to do. That's also where outdated activities that are keeping the organization from moving forward and sometimes creating job security for certain individuals. So it's where you're also likely to get the most resistance to change because as we have always done it this way, or Betty's been doing our bookkeeping that way forever. it works, it's not broken, and Betty would absolutely hate to do X. I can't tell you how many clients have told me we can't use QuickBooks Online. We have to have desktop. And then on the flip side, every accountant who's ever told me that's not true. There's this perception, there's this mindset and perception of what's possible, what makes sense for us, because on some level we all think we're super special, and there's just no way this thing is going to do what we need it to do the way we need to do it. So that came up for me. Then I was like, old tech is still also good tech sometimes. So we like Post-it note is a technology.
Well, I got stories about that.
Any office that doesn't have a Post-it, right? Do I use it for my CRM? No, because importing is really difficult with a piece of paper. But I use my Post-its for other things that allow me to be effective and efficient. So, as you were talking, Jess, about there's not a lot of things I can do to help you control your labor costs, except there's a lot of really good, somewhat expensive, but worth the investment pre-employment testing that can be done.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of that.
In my mind, that's an existing technology. It's not emerging. It's been around for a long time. If you don't opt for the, $10 one on Facebook and actually engage a qualified professional, you can improve hiring and retention and all these other things that are going to cost you more over time. But if you can reduce some of the ancillary costs. And the third thing is, Jess always says, are you relevant?
One of my things, are you relevant?
If your job, if the way you serve customers involves a lot of writing for them, with them, around them, and you're not using AI, you are not relevant. It doesn't matter how much you know. That will be valuable in certain contexts, but you're leaving a lot of time and money on the table, and you're simply not relevant in current culture. So I think that's a really important question that Jess has brought to my brain a lot of, what is relevancy? Because again, if I think about exit planning, people want to say purposeful and relevant. How am I going to stay purposeful and relevant? Right. And if you're not focused on your purpose now and you're not doing things to stay relevant in the areas you want to stay relevant in now, it's not going to magically happen when you transition from being a business owner to whatever the next stage of life is. So having strategies around staying relevant, feeling meaningful, contributing in meaningful ways, that has broader applications too.
I love that you were making notes on sticky notes because I'll actually use that as an example. I have paper for every single one of my clients, and I still do. And here's an interesting concept in relationship to that. How I want to use AI, which by the way is finally here, is I want to be able to input all of my notes in addition to maybe transcripts in the future. But right now I want to start with my notes because I can go back if I've been working with a company for 8 years, which is the average of companies that are working with me. I know approximately this year, this big win happened, but we can't remember exactly. So in the way that I take notes, I can show up and I can find it relatively quickly. Whereas in technology, it doesn't matter where you were putting all of this technology and all of these digital notes. All you had were images or pieces of paper that weren't really searchable from the tool that you were using, right? And now we actually have the technology with which to search those. So the questions and the value that I'm bringing are great, but being able to use, like, I'm big on reflection too. Are you relevant? Do you reflect? And until AI can help me reflect and find things to support growth and building on what's making somebody successful, their unique way of doing things, this particular process is going to be very antiquated. And I'm okay with that. But at the same point in time, there are so many other things that come to mind in relationship to, well, I need a journal prompt. I'm a better responder than I am creator. Give me something, right? What are 5 things to think about? Like I could actually say, here, take this correct transcript of Christy and Dean and me and tell me something I haven't figured out on my own from our conversation, right? Work from another viewpoint. And I love seeing that because it opens up the way we think to those bigger, broader questions.
Jess, I don't know if you saw Shauna's comment on LinkedIn,
Bring it.
but I knew Shauna was going to probably be watching today, and her field happens to be in in that professional testing, that pre-employment testing, and she just noted that even in her industry, there's lots of different ways, if I'm reading this correctly. They can even in her field, her peers can be more efficient and less expensive with emerging technologies. But you're never going to replace the brain behind it, Shauna's brain and her team's brain, to be able to take that data and really make meaning of it. You might be able to expedite that process and improve upon it. And, those who stay relevant will. They will use that technology to get better, faster, smarter with the human piece of the work that's needed. I jokingly put on, I think it was actually Instagram, that when AI can give my cat her oral meds, then, I'll actually be scared about it taking over the universe, because there's just going to be certain things that it can't do. It can tell me academically what it has learned and iterated on, but there are just some things you don't really know until you've had the bites and the scratches to prove it. So, A, Shauna, thank you for watching and dealing with my tangents, and B, thank you for pointing out that, emerging technologies are showing up everywhere. And I would just put the plug in for, you still need a really talented professional, whether it's accounting, psychology, organizational development, industrial organizational design, growth consulting, whatever the case may be, exit planning. It's that element that is going to be the hardest to replace. And that's, to Dean's point, if you lean into your values and your purpose and you do it better than anyone else, that's when you can take technology and leverage it for not only the greater good, but for all the things you're trying to create in the world, in addition to and beyond profit.
All of our clients are human beings.
Absolutely.
As long as there's a human connection, that then we're relevant as humans in this whole AI, technology. So, you know, eh, yeah, there's certain things that robots will take over certain, functions, but unless you got robots talking to robots, and that's not our industry, and near 100% of businesses are human to human. So yeah, utilize those technologies so that you can streamline things, but and then you bring the value of you as a person and a professional to that client who's a professional on their end. It's yeah, and that's part of the I think it's actually just part of the human condition. you know, it's just, how we're interacting with each other. So
Yes, 100%.
We always need to have space with which to handle cost reduction. For example, I've had 3 pieces of technology increase in cost 200 to 600% from last year to this year. That's a lot of money, and that's a huge jump, and that's a lot of technology. So if we didn't have capacity with which to go, what can we do? How can we do this? And so here's my first question. My first question is, which of our technologies do we have overlapping functionality with, and can they get us what we want? Can I reduce the number of technologies I have by leveraging what the companies are developing on my behalf because I've decided to be their customer? So sometimes we don't have to know the questions to ask. We just have to know where to go find some answers and where to go find some support. This outside piece, they're already trying to keep me as a client. What are they doing and how are they doing it? Do I need to know day to day? Do I need to get their development updates? No, because I'm not a programmer. And I will say, do I like to see what's going on? Do I like to understand the new features? Is it something that's redundant on somewhere else? Because it's good to know. Because if I have to make quick cash finds, guess where I'm going to go? We tend to go to contraction. So if we have an awareness of what we already have and where they're going and what's already evolving there, we can get some easy contractions without big technology change, was what I was going to add there. The second piece then, to come back to this humanness, I love this. We have to have a mindset shift. And I'm saying have to on purpose, because we will either continue to move as individuals in our roles, as our CEO role, as our side hustle, as our main role in our company, and the way we look at the jobs that we're doing and the people we're working with as dollars for hours. What do I get from the hours you spend with me, and am I paying for that? As long as we have a dollars for hours mentality, we are at risk of being replaced by technology.
Yeah, because we're a commodity. Yeah.
And losing the humans that we actually need because we're not valuing their output. We're not valuing their unique talent and contributions. We're valuing how much face time and hours. We're measuring productivity by a metric that in many cases is not relevant.
So dollars becoming the output of measurable, actionable items instead of dollars being the metric with which is measured. That mindset is huge. And the companies that can make that shift are going to be the ones that stay relevant longer.
Well, this is a little off topic then, but with the push to go back to work in person and people, some companies demanding 100% in person regardless, is that taking us farther away from that mindset? And potentially those leaders are, in fact, putting some of their ability to be relevant and successful at risk?
Yeah, I think it's a backward step, actually. I think hybrid, is a better because people have had the taste of remote and there's plenty of statistics out there that remote work, there's higher productivity. But to force people 100% to go back to 100% in person, man, I think that's a step back for companies, in my opinion, because to me that's not a win-win. And you're trying to relive something else. And there's ways to connect with team and all that, both virtual and, part-time remote, part-time in person. I mean, so that's just the how I view it and the discussions I have with various people about that subject.
It makes me think too that the investment then needs to be on how to build culture, connection, collaboration without physical proximity or with a mix of some physical proximity, but not 100% physical proximity. And is there technology that we can use or create that helps us do that better than we do it now? But really, it goes back to our humanness. We have to remember we're humans and we have human needs that need to be met in the workplace. Technology can help us meet some of those, but there will need to be an expertise if there is not already within your organization to leverage the humanness of your team. I think a lot of my experience has been that people think the humanness of, like, it's humans being humans, bringing all those emotions to work, bringing all those issues to work, having like these things that distract them from being productive. They're humans being humans. So if we can make space for that and then use technology in ways that allow them to be more human and more productive, that actually demands a lot of us as leaders that we've probably neglected to develop those strengths along the way as a business sector to be, just overall.
I really think it depends on your culture. I think it depends on the role, and I think it depends on your leadership and the kind of leader that you are. And how because there's a management piece. I mean, some roles I'm thinking about electricians, I'm thinking about plumbers, I'm thinking about floor installers. They're never in an office. Their job is out on sites. And so there's something to learn from that. The computer work, office work, there are elements to that, and there are schools dedicated to teach people how to manage and lead in those environments, and that is limiting because they don't have experience anywhere else. And then there are dispersed teams which tend to be in the where people can kinda, like, piece together and throw all the things together and get it there, and I think of development teams or remote sales teams or all of these other things that you see where you can be remote and you can be more productive. But why are they more productive? You want me to tell you? I got an idea. My idea why they're more productive, you ready? Is because there are not as many meetings they have to be in.
Yeah.
Can I just be real with you? Because I'm like, come
Uh,
on, let's just boil this down.
I love a good meeting with a good agenda. Sometimes it's got to be a meeting, but if it doesn't have to be a meeting, it should be an email. And if it doesn't need to be an email, it should be one text.
You listen to me and you're like, come on, are you from the 90s? Why, yes, I started my career in the 90s. But guess what? This is still true. The more we're around, the more people want our time, the more that we have to be discerning of how are we spending our time. Because Productivity comes from being able to be uninterrupted and doing deep work.
It also comes from giving people a level of autonomy that many folks aren't comfortable with because there's a fundamental lack of trust. So we could go, this is a whole nother topic that we could go off on. Again, Shauna's on our team on this. She said excellent points. I respond very well to positive affirmations, so I would just like to thank her for that. The culture people is the culture people, and she makes the point, people need to feel happy on Sunday night. They do. They need to feel happy on Sunday night. Getting the Monday scaries is a thing, and the Monday scaries keeps people from being productive.
Are you paying for an employee to work a certain period of time, or are you paying for results?
Yeah, that's right.
If you're paying someone, say, $80,000 a year in whatever function, and you need to have these X results done, do you really care if they get it done in 10 hours versus 40?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully not, because you're like, what, that $80,000 I'm outlaying plus benefits and all that, they're getting whatever, 4X of whatever. Who cares if they're, doing laundry and playing with their kids at, 10 a.m. in the morning, as long as they're getting their stuff done. To me, it's like, who cares?
That's the point too, is like, I do care if it takes 40 hours to do a 4-hour job, frankly.
Well, true, right.
I also know that people are capable of putting in a load of laundry, taking the dog for a walk, and doing that project in a 4-hour period. It may just not be 4 contiguous hours, right? So I think the more we understand about what a job requires and the behaviors that we need to see that indicate that somebody has the ability to do the job the way the job needs to be done. Again, I think in a good way, it demands more of us as managers and leaders. It requires us to be more specific, to Jess's point about what are our goals and priorities. Do these activities get us closer to our goals and priorities, achieving those? Are they being done in alignment with our values? Does it keep us focused on the right North Star and keep us from getting overly distracted by things that are by life, right? Those kinds of things. And I love the idea of grappling with these issues, making us be better visionaries, leaders, and managers, because we need all 3 of those skills in our companies. And the stronger we get at performing in those roles, the better we get at not only taking care of our people and giving them what they need to be successful, but we also take care of our clients and give them what they need.
I'm your host, Jess Dewell, and we're getting down to business on the Bold Business Podcast. This is where we're tackling the challenges that matter most to you with actionable and achievable advice to get real results that lead to your success. Don't forget, press that bell icon so you never miss a program. And it's time to subscribe as well.
Focused on growth? Listen to more programs like this which support the challenges and opportunities you are working with right now. Come on! Search Bold Business Podcast for the key terms at reddirection.com or your preferred podcast listening app.
When we're thinking about technology, new technology, AI, emerging technologies, there's serious opportunity. And every single thing we just talked about has a technological opportunity with it. And it's up to us to figure that out. So I thought maybe we could actually spend a couple of minutes and talk about that, which, by the way, we're like 3/4 of the way done with our show. And we were so into this, I forgot to say, hey, you're listening to It's Your Business with Christy and Dean and me, Jess. And we're talking about staying competitive and embracing emerging technologies to do so. Welcome to this program provided to you by the Bold Business Podcast. And here we go.
Well done. Thank you for that station break.
I know, right? So the opportunity, right? So there's real opportunities that technology can bring. And I thought it would be good. We're talking about it. And even though we might not be like, hey, we're all about emerging technologies and this is what we talk about, we recognize the opportunities, recognize the need, and we recognize even in our own businesses, in addition to our clients, how we can be helpful and where this makes sense. So we've talked a lot about it, but I'm like, what if we share some examples, actual opportunities that people have considered and the choices they've made?
how I'm using AI is through my marketing efforts, and I have one of my marketing people, he'll say, what do you think is a relevant topic? So I give him the list of things that might be relevant in my industry and what I'm doing right now. He feeds that into whatever chat GPT or whatever, kicks out a whole like a post that I review, and then I review and I'm like, okay, I'm going to change this. I'm going to, but there's a foundational stuff. Now, if I was to sit down and write it and try to write it within my current schedule, that could be 2 weeks later that I would have that instead of, maybe a day later or even 2 hours later. So to me, it's just much more efficient to do that. And, and I still have control over it, but let's just say I'm letting AI be that worker bee to do all that stuff. And it's been great, and I think first time when decided to use that, I was like, oh no, I want it all in my voice and all that. And I can still put it in my voice. It's just, it's don't let the perfect be the enemy of good.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of that kind of thing too. I mean, before we had AI as our kind of now default internet search experience in many ways, I was always using outside resources, books, podcasts, Google searches to help jumpstart the creative thinking process for me, or to say, like, is this a thing? Like in my brain, this is a thing. Anybody else think this is a thing? Who else is thinking this is a thing? Right. And like, so just the other day, I was like, are we actually afraid of change or are we afraid of ambiguity? Let's ask. Are people more afraid of change than ambiguity? They're like, ambiguity usually leads to a fear of change and fear of ambiguity. I was like, look at all that. Look at that I didn't have the first thought, but I had a good thought, right? And I'm preparing for another podcast that I'm going to be on, and it's a different take on things. It's a marketing podcast. And while I do marketing things all the time for myself and my clients, I'm like, how am I going to tie this to succession planning? Because that's what I really want to do is how do I tie it to exit and succession planning? And I said, how would you, AI, tie these things together? And it did what my brain would have done had I had the time and space to let my brain do it. And it just exponentially jump started what is my natural thought process. And to Dean's point, my ability to put my own take on it. Because I didn't copy and paste anything. I just was like, thank you. You just took all the disparate thoughts in my brain, connected all those dots for me faster than I could, and now I can riff on them. So, I think we're all going to find ways, whether that's how to get your recipe written faster so you can pass it on to your grandkids, or like how you're going to revolutionize technology in your space. And then there's other people, like lean into people. One of my colleagues, Leah Wald, with Checkmark Projects, put out her blog of her favorite things. And since she's an operations guru, they're all technologies. Use this for this, and this for this, and this for this, and this for. I'm like, great. Now, next time somebody asks me what my favorite CRM is, I'm going to say, I use this, but Leah loves this. go go check it out, and then if you need more help, go call Leah because that's her jam. So lean on others too. Figure that out with.
I'm using it for data collection because, we have every business has reports and they have so much information that can come from everywhere. It's like, well, what do I actually track? And we've narrowed it down to 3 or 4 things that we are tracking at a company. And then we break those down into the same buckets, but by business role and, business section and whatever we need to do for each role that we have. So we've got, these are the results we're looking for to get this bigger result because these are the major things that we have got going on. And everybody wants to give us different reports. And so I'm just like, feed it in, feed it in, feed it in. And then I can be like, okay, cool. But thanks for giving me this big report. Let's lay our things that we're measuring on top of that. How does this all look when we just put ours on top? And that is how we are using some of this emerging technology to get rid of what we don't need to see, to recognize and spend our creative energy doing creative things instead of trying to discern and decipher and filter all of this to get here. So we're actually using it in an automated process so that we can speed up report conversations. We can speed up what we're doing in all of these different things, because that means the meetings that we choose to have, that we actually have time to dig in and go, well, is this a problem? What are the ideas? Reprioritize there in those meetings outside of present retreat time, because that's what everybody's going to take back to their individual protected deep work time. I call those present retreats, and be able to go, so how do I want to do things differently? What are the things that we can do over here in this business unit to bring back and get to this bigger goal? And we can actually move faster, better, bigger than our competitors. Does that really matter? Maybe. Depends on what our other big goals are, right? Where are we going to be in 5 years? But I guess that's a way that we're using it. Just filter, discern, tell us, because it's all there. And we can get more. I can get information on all of my competitors to put in there too. So how about us compared to them without somebody having to sit down and go collect the data, tally it up, run the reports, all of that stuff. And I think that that's huge from a competitive placement. I also think it's huge from a strategic positioning placement. So we can ask the bigger questions. What's changing faster?
Well, I think what's important about our examples too is that, and it's like for Christy and me, we're using technology to take that first step to get, which, it doesn't matter if it's an exercise program or you're working on nutrition or whatever, it's doing that first day or whatever, and if you're using, AI or an emerging technology just to let's just get to the first step so that we initiate it. And then Jess, you showed the excitement of like, hey, when you get in there, you get proficient with it. Then it's like, oh, all this other exciting stuff. And then your creativity really kicks in because you're like, okay, now I know how this works. And now look at all the possibilities. And so there's a twofold benefit is, hey, get that first step in, but next is like now you're sprinting and you're having fun and you're playing with this technology. And that's good stuff there. That's great stuff.
I have so many more things to share. And guess what? We're at the time of the program where it's like, hey, what's your biggest takeaway, everybody? And I'm like, I don't want to do this yet. But we gotta, because we have this thing called a time constraint. Okay, so which of us wants to go first about that?
My biggest takeaway is that despite having a title that intimidated me, because I was like, I'm not known for my daily musings on emergency technology, despite having a title that was a little challenging, I had a lot to say about it, which proves my theory that I have an opinion about everything. I just haven't been asked yet. So thank you for challenging my ability to stretch and grow in this space and to share my thoughts. And you brought up so many things that made my brain do so many tangents that I too am a little sad to see it all be done right now. But and quite honestly, the big takeaway is that you need to know what's going on and you need to evaluate any technology, big T or little t, through the lens of your priorities and your goals. Because when you said just recently, Jess, of like, well, we can go move faster than our competitors. And then you immediately said, if that's our goal. And I think about like the Birkin bag, I think one of the bags that is like scarce, right? Their goal is not to move faster than their competitors. Their goal is not to have the handbag delivered faster or to use new technology to make it. And everybody's given them all sorts of crap about that. But they are very clear in what their goal is. Handcrafted, high quality, rare and exclusive, not available to everyone.
My takeaway is just, hey, you got to get over the fear of getting into new technology so that, and just perfectly demonstrated so that you can get into the excitement and creativity of how that technology can help you. But there's a two-step process that I think is really important. Some people, just normally who they are, they just jump into every piece of new technology there is. But there's a ton of us that don't. And so just take that first step, get in there. And then you'll be like, wow. Yeah, I think you mentioned it at the very beginning, Chrissy. We'll be like, how did we do this without AI? So just like, how did we do it without cell phones? How did we do it without internet? And now it's like you don't think of anything else, and it's such, it permeates what our life is. So yeah, help it to get over that hump, and then really thrive.
And here I am thinking, how cool is it that everything we're talking about today, when we use it through this one lens of this is what we do and this is what we do well. And so, how can we use technology to help us do that better and better? Because I can actually tell you, QuickBooks was losing some market share. And here will be my last example. I read this in CFO Brew. So if anybody is listening and they are reading newsletters and email newsletters, CFO Brew is where I saw this. And basically, the outcome of whatever that conversation was, they had to switch quickly. So what did they do? They doubled down on what they did the best with to enter a new market without having to reinvent something for that new market. And they came down from big business to the smaller SMEs where they were losing some market share because they didn't even know that was a market that was available to them. But they adapted quickly because they doubled down on what their capability already is and what their priorities are. So that's what my big takeaway is about all of this conversation. To be fast, where do you want to be fast? To know your capabilities and then make those decisions accordingly. I can't believe it. I mean, holy cow, can you imagine? Right, like in the 90s, we were talking about what? We don't have to use a fax machine anymore? We can send an email?
I loved my first PDA. My boyfriend, now husband, gave me a PDA, and I was like, thanks. Nothing says love like a piece of equipment I didn't ask for. And within 20 minutes, I was like, this is going to change my life. I still mourn my BlackBerry.
I'm sorry. I never
When
had
I
a
get in the
BlackBerry.
car
Oh.
without a backup camera, I'm like, oh, I got to turn my head.
I know. Well, it's true, and it shows up everywhere. Like in the 2010s, right? Every business became a technology business. We have to have technology integrated in instead of bolted on. So this is just another step in that next evolution, and I love that about the timeliness and everything that we are working with here. Do you have any other last comments, Christy or Dean?
I would say just remember, in every era, there's a quote from somebody who said, that's never going to catch on. So if you find yourself thinking, oh, that's never going to catch on, you might be the person quoted when it does. So that might be your clue to just tune in a little bit more, open your brain a little bit more. Like Dean said, take it to you, take a baby step, explore it, see if it's right for you. You never know, you might like it. But yeah, that's what I think of is there's just in every era we can point to somebody, usually a very big leader in their time, who thought something just wasn't relevant and they are no longer with us, literally and figuratively.
Well, and everybody who's watching and listening to this is already in emerging technology, because this was not a thing 20 years ago.
This wasn't even a thing a couple of years ago.
You heard it here. And I'm even saying you heard it here first in this way. Ta-da! All right, it's your business. We will see you next time.
Every single time I have a conversation, I take away something that I want to share with 25 people. I know when you're listening to this podcast, you're also listening for that and will have something that you want to share. In the comments, I would like for you to engage with us. What is that thing that you want to tell 25 people from this program? Here's why it's important. It's important because, yeah, there are going to be how-tos. Yes, there are going to be steps. Yes, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I wrote that down. I wish I wasn't doing this and I could actually take action on that right now. But guess what? You're not. So engage right now, because that one thing you want to share with others will be the thing that you can figure out how to incorporate in your business, in your workflow, in your style tomorrow.
Wow! Jess hosts the Bold Business Podcast to provide insights for building a resilient, profitable business by deeply understanding your growth strategy, ensuring market relevance and your company's future. It is bold to deeply understand your growth strategy with your host, Jess Dewell. Get more information about how to drive solutions and reset your growth mindset at reddirection.com. Thank you for joining us, and special thanks to our post-production team at The Scott Treatment.